You people sit too far away. Pull up the chairs close here. I can't feel you. Come closer, don't be afraid. I'll retract my horns. Come closer. Yeah, it's better. How many people are actually doing the silence? Great. What is the purpose of silence? For some it is total mental rest. But that is the lesser of the purposes. What is the purpose of life and the purpose of being here? In India we speak of unknown thousands of incarnations through which we have passed and have been finally blessed with this human body in which we can do some sadhana and truly get to know ourselves. And we spend the entire life of this body away from the self, away from the self into selfishness, away from the self into selfishness. That's not a contradiction in terms. You identify yourself with all the objects of the world. You identify yourself with everything that you experience of the world. You absorb that into your awareness. You identify with that experience. You then view yourself to be that. And with these artificial layers upon layers of ego, you act, you think, you feel, you cry, you laugh, you seek, you pursue. True fulfillment hardly to be found. Constant frustration, disappointment, and constant question, why am I here? If you know the answer to who or what I am, you have the answer to why I am here. What's the purpose of this life? Why I am here? Maulana Rumi says, look at how God has elevated you. You are a mineral in mineral consciousness. At that time, your consciousness was that of a mineral. And you identified yourself with that mineral, with that rock. God elevated you and you became a vegetable and a plant. And you identified yourself with the consciousness that the plant has. And at that time, sucking juices with your mouth buried in the ground. The plant's mouths are buried in the ground, through which they suck the juices of the earth. With your mouth buried in the ground, you suck the juices of the earth and somehow manage to pull those juices up into the diverse ends of the limbs and the leaves. And that was the most natural living you could ever think of while you were a plant. That was your consciousness. That was your awareness, says Rumi. Your mouth and your head got out of the ground and you became a horizontal walking animal, a flying bird, still horizontal. 4 feet or 2 feet on the ground. And what is natural to the animal was natural to you. There could be nothing more natural than that. And plants became your edible food. The same form that you had before, which was you, now became your food. Quite a comedy going on. And you walked horizontal. With your eyes to the ground. And that was the most natural existence there could be. You couldn't figure out how some strange beings could be standing vertical. That was your pleasure. Says Rumi, by divine grace you became a human being, stood vertical with your head up heavenward, no longer buried to suck juices from the earth in the ground. Complete turnaround. Walking about with your busy life, do you ever think of this history of yourself? Your biography? That's your biography, and mine too. But your head is still buried in the ground and your mouth is still buried in the earth. The head that has been placed heavenward scarcely ever thinks of heavens, scarcely thinks of your own celestial existence. And now that you have progressed this far in your consciousness, in your awareness, in your identification, what is next? What is the next elevation you might aspire for? That's why you are here. And you ask, why am I here? Why are we here on the earth? Why are we in the world? What's the purpose of my life? The purpose of your life is to seek the next elevation. Do you do that? That your consciousness is at present identified with your present egos. I have thick hair, I am bald. This is your identification. I'm beautiful, I'm ugly. I see somebody beautiful, I am ugly. See somebody uglier than me, I am beautiful. Are you beautiful or are you ugly? Can't make up your mind. Constant shifting identity, constantly shifting identity. One moment this, next moment that. One moment happy, one moment unhappy. Can't make up your mind whether you are happy or unhappy, but mostly unhappy. Because you are constantly identifying with that which is not you. Same old lecture, boring stuff over and over again. Can't free ourselves through contemplation of these truths about ourselves. Freedom we don't seek. We shout freedom, freedom, freedom. Independence of the mind you do not speak, you do not seek. You seek all other kind of independence in the world. But independence of the mind you do not seek. Your mind is constantly dependent on something else, something else, something else, something over there, over there, over there. Someone over there, someone over there, someone over there. For your happiness and for your unhappiness. Akodhimam, avadhimam, ajinimam, mahasime. He shouted angry words at me. He hit me. He vanquished me. He laughed at me. He did it. What about you? Did you do those? Why are you so dependent on what somebody else did? Somebody who cursed, somebody who laughed at you, why are you dependent on him for your state of mind? You can't make your own state of mind. It's your mind. It's not somebody else's mind. It's not his mind. All sorts of makeup for beautifying the body. You put that makeup on, you identify with it, and you say, I am beautiful. With the makeup for the mind. Seek the independence of your mind. Non-dependence on objects and experiences other than your own being, your own self. Then you will be unselfish. Then you will be selfless. Sounds like a paradox. The paradoxes contain the ultimate truths. Like the banks float and the river stood still. The purpose of silence is to disidentify from all those objects that you have become accustomed to identifying with yourself, that you are that. You are not that. Someone laughed at you. How does that become your identification? You say, I'm unhappy because somebody laughed at me. He laughed, you didn't. So what do you have to do with it? What's your connection? Why did you take that, identify with it, and make it part of your person? Somebody dropped a dirty object on the ground. You picked it up. You picked it up. You picked it up. And you say, he made me dirty. And now I'm dirty. Now I'm angry. Now I'm upset. Who told you to be so? Seek the independence of the mind. Silence is to be defined as practicing the independence of the mind. Non-dependence on external objects of identification. Non-dependence on the worldly experiences and their objects. Then wisdom flows naturally. Knowledge is dropped. Wisdom begins. You know the difference between intellectual knowledge and wisdom? Wisdom is that which guides your mind and your life towards that fulfillment which is your next elevation, from the mineral to the vegetable, plant to the subhuman animal to the present animal called human. Not much difference at the moment. Ahara nidra bhaya maithunanja samanyametat pashubhir naranam dharmo hiyesham adhiko vishesha dharmena hinaha pashubhi samana. A very ancient lawgiver, Manu said, consumption, ahara, eating, consumption. Swami Rama always spoke of these four fountains. Nidra, sleep. Bhaya, fear. Fear means aggression. Fear means anger. Fear means attack. Fear means all the efforts of self-defense, and all the defensiveness you have. And the copulative urge, 4. Samanyametat Pashubhir Naranam, in that the human beings and the non-humans are same. There's no difference. The only thing is that a cow is quite happy without going to a restaurant. You are not. Samanyamhitat Pashubhir Naranam, these are 4 fountains, 4 urges which are held in common by the human and non-human animals. Dharmo hi esham adhiko vishesha. What distinguishes human beings is your practice of dharma, your practice of life of wisdom. Not information. Nowadays, there's more information in the world than there has ever been. More plants and animals and species are catalogued. Their taxonomies specified. Their names are given. And there are less plants and species every day, thanks to the human beings. We have more catalogues of them. And catalogue by catalogue, we are busy extinguishing them. So that information is no knowledge. That information would become wisdom if you preserved them instead of extinguishing them, making them extinct. Then the same information would become source of wisdom. So the action through wisdom is dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A. Dharmo hi esham adhiko vishesha. Only your dharma is that which distinguishes you from the subhuman animals. Without that, there is no distinction on these 4 grounds. So long as these 4 that we have named remain your primary pursuits, which is the fact today, that long, there is no distinction between me and you and the subhuman animals. We are the same. We are the naked ape. You seek food, they seek food. You sleep, they sleep. You have all kinds of fears of attack, and in response you either run or you become aggressive. Same thing the other animals do. You reproduce other human beings, they reproduce other cows or lions or tigers when you let them. No difference. So, why are we here? seek the next elevation. That next elevation is not in a physical form. Next step in evolution is not in information and knowledge. Knowledge comes. Knowledge happens as you grow spiritually, knowledge comes easily. This is one byproduct of spiritual progress, that knowledge comes easily. When Prince Siddhartha, who was to become Buddha later, at the age of 5 or whatever age, his father, the king, invited a teacher to teach him to write script. So the first day the teacher comes and sits down, and the little child pays the usual respects. And the teacher says, "I will now teach you script." And the child rattles off a list of 64 scripts and says, "Which one of these scripts and the calligraphic methods are you going to teach me?" And the teacher says, "Huh? What?" He's rattling off the list of scripts whose names I don't know. And the methods of calligraphy I do not understand. I have nothing to teach this child. This list of those 64 scripts is given there in the texts. They're talking of 6th century BC. It can be 36 centuries from now if you are to be a Buddha. With information, wisdom does not come necessarily naturally. But with wisdom, knowledge, the informational knowledge comes easily by itself. Please remember that. Because your mind, why is it that you have problems learning? Because your mind is not independent. Because your mind is confined. Because your mind does not know to open itself. You have not learned the art of opening the mind, that's why you have difficulty learning. So informational knowledge comes as a byproduct of wisdom. But wisdom is not a byproduct of informational knowledge. That you have to seek. You can make your information an instrument for gaining wisdom if you choose to do so. It can be one of the means to gain wisdom. Wisdom is that which guides your life. And how do we know when we are acting wisely? Because in the end product then we have no frustration, no disappointment, no anger, no self-dereliction. That's the difference between Plato and Aristotle, or Socrates and Aristotle. Socrates is wise, Aristotle is well informed. It's no fun reading Aristotle. Right? Socrates is fun. Or the ancient rishis, the sages, the masters. they pack in a sutra a wisdom words. And on each sutra you can write 10 million words. And just because you can write 10 million words, you are not equal to that wise man. So silencing those 10 million words, silencing your misidentifications, the way you identify with the event of someone having laughed at you. That comes in which one of these four urges? Fear. Freedom from fear is silence. A man of silence, a woman of silence, has no need to defend himself or herself because there is nothing to defend from. It's somebody else's act, not yours. You only act in the manner that is correct, that is right, that is wisdom. From within you it arises. It gives you guidance. You don't condemn the world for laughing at you, but you use the right words that bring harmony from within you without any reason. Because that is the way to live, that is the way of dharma, that is the way of altruism. And recent studies have shown that many non-human animals also have this trait of altruism that is natural to them. So you're not unique just because you do one altruistic act. So understand the purpose of silence, this cleansing, this purifying, this disidentifying from false identifications. Okay. Only a silent mind can contemplate. What is the difference between logical thinking and contemplation? I have spoken about it many times before, because at our ashram, when we teach the texts of Vedanta, we do not teach them as texts of philosophy. We teach them in association with the practices that they refer to. And I think, there are one or two rare saintly teachers in India who teach Vedanta that way to their select few. Ours probably is the only school where we teach the texts like the Gita, like the Upanishads and other works in the context of the practices. Okay. Practice of contemplation. So what's the difference between logical thinking and contemplation? Logical thinking leads you only to a conclusion, and that's it. You say, okay, I have reached the conclusion. Contemplation leads you to wisdom. Wisdom that you can apply. Okay. read the texts, form the habit of reading contemplative texts. Form the habit of reading contemplative texts, texts of the contemplative philosophers, teachers, guides, sages. Not just information, but application of wisdom. Application of wisdom not to action, but to the state of your being. Application of wisdom to the state of your being. As you are, as you wish to know yourself to be, as you know yourself to be, eventually. Know yourself to be as you are, that which is not bound to the time, space, and causation. That which is not dependent on things external to you. What is the definition of external? What is the definition of external? What do we mean by external? The body, its shape, form, condition is external to you. Compared to that body, the prana is internal to you. Compared to the mere body, the breath is internal to you. Compared to the breath, the body is external to you. Compared to mind, the prana is external to you. Then the mind is internal to you. But is that you? The states of mind? That is external to you. The mind's being happy and unhappy. The mind's being satisfied or dissatisfied. These are all external to you. These are external to the principle of ahamkara, ego. Ego, not in the sense in which you use the word as pride, but ego as the principle of identification. All limitations with which you identify yourselves, all limitation with which you identify yourselves. Understand this gradation of the internal and the external. In Vedanta, you drop each of these externals. At present, no matter how much you contemplate, you stand in front of the mirror and you say, "That's me." I stand in front of the mirror and I say, "This is my current body that I have to use." My current body, not me. A set of clothing I'm wearing. I've been wearing it for more than 74 years. It's a bit boring. Isn't it boring to wear the same clothing for 74 years and not change? What do you say? Huh? To be wearing the same clothing for the last 45 years. To be wearing the same clothing for the last 80 years. To be wearing the same clothing for the last 95 years and very proudly say, I'm 95. Why are people so afraid of changing their clothes? Like the kids afraid of taking a bath. What's wrong? What's the matter? What's gone wrong there? You follow? Are you with me? So I stand before the mirror and I say, it's my current body, I've been wearing it for the last 74 years. Well, I still have some uses for it. I haven't completed my use for it. So better stay on, keep on wearing the same body for a while more. That's all. Somebody talks to you about changing your clothes, you're scared of death. Don't talk about unpleasant things. You don't want to change your clothes. You want to change your ties. You want to change your dress. You want to change your hairstyle. When it comes to the real clothes you're wearing, you don't want to change. You're scared of it because you're so accustomed to those clothes. It's like those prisoners who have been in prison for 20 years and are scared to come out into the world. That's your position. With your attachment to this body and your fear of death. Your fear of death is like that of a prisoner who, after having been in the accustomed environment of the prison, which has become normal to him, is scared of coming out into the world. He feels very insecure outside. No. Right? Is Linda here? No. Listen. Stand up. I'm having a little doubt. I need to do this. Okay. Follow? These are our contemplations that lead to wisdom. And when you have wisdom, then those 4 urges that we just listed cease to be urges and become sources of wisdom. Just hold. I'm sorry, you have to give me 2 minutes. I have some doubt. I'm sorry, don't videotape me on that. It's a very, very physical necessity I have. Yeah. Very dangerous. I wonder, is there any juice available?
Yes. Okay, yes.
Pardon?
Yes, okay, please.
I need it right now.
Okay.
Can't delay. It's okay. I've had times when in the middle of my lecture I've fainted. Check my blood sugar and it's at 45 right now. But it's okay. I'll have a little juice, I'll be okay. So, understand the difference between contemplation towards wisdom and logical argument towards conclusions, and seek wisdom. So that these four, ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna, consuming of food, sleep, fear. Didn't say anger, didn't say defensiveness, didn't say aggressiveness. We call it fear. Your anger, your aggressiveness is manifestation of fear. And your copulative urge, let them become sources of wisdom. Thank you.
Drink it here.
Thank you. Body has its conditions. The clothes get torn. And I was going for my heart operation. I called my master. He said, well, come for my heart operation. He said, yeah. Clothes got torn, get it repaired. When I was leaving India, my doctors looked at my MRI scans and they said, Swamiji, somebody in your condition only lies in bed. But I sit straight because I know how to iron my clothes. You don't. And my doctors are more worried than I am. Because I don't live in fear. You do. Okay. So use the period of silence for contemplative wisdom. Okay. You come to a point where you no longer act out of fears. most people's anger at you is a reaction to your fear, your fearful act of aggression. For example, the aggressive tone in your voice. I say this all the time, but somehow it doesn't sink in. The identification doesn't change, the habit doesn't change. You know? Your politics is based on fear. Your relationship with the neighborhood is based on fear. Your relationship with your children is based on fear. Your relationship with your spouse is based on fear. And you can't get out of it. It's based on these four urges. Because you have not made these four urges into fountains of wisdom and inspiration. Because you do logical thinking, but you don't do contemplation. No. So that is the purpose of silence. Disidentification and seeking the independence of the mind. Your mind no longer dependent on that and that and that and this and that one and that person and that one over there. All your addictions are based on these four. Addictions you can't come out of based on that. Your survival instinct based on fear. It's not survival instinct, it's fear instinct. You're afraid of losing your accustomed ground. You're afraid of losing your accustomed identifications. And yet your identifications change every day. You're not today what you were yesterday. And you will not be 10 years from now what you are today. Willy-nilly, no matter what, your identification keeps changing. Some decades back you were a daughter. Now you are a mother. And what you used to say about your mother, your daughters say about you. And some decades back, you were a daughter-in-law, you are a mother-in-law. And what your daughter-in-law says, when you used to say what you used to say as daughter-in-law, now your daughter-in-law says about you. Continuous change of identifications, and you are afraid of disidentifying with the core identifications that I am the body. I am this accustomed egotistical mind. In our ashram we teach, among other things, the texts of Shankar Acharya, the one who reorganized our monastic order 12 centuries ago and gave all this system of Vedantic contemplation. And I want to introduce you to two of his texts. I marked some pages, but I've already spoken to you for an hour and 20 minutes. So, I'll read to you again more tomorrow. One text is called Upadesha Sahasri, 1,000 homilies. It's a very difficult text. The subject of this text is how should a guru lead a disciple, by what arguments, by what philosophical arguments the guru, the Vedantic guru, should lead a disciple towards liberation. And those arguments are given in these chapters. And the other text, Viveka Chudamani, crest jewel of discrimination. Crest jewel of discrimination, discriminating wisdom. No? I will not read to you all of it in Sanskrit, but allow me at least one paragraph in the original. Then I'll try to give you a little bit of his argument. Keep the food ready. It will be done in 10 minutes. Mumukshunam upatta punya punyakshapan paranam apurva nupachayarthinam parisankhyanam idamuchyate avidya hetavo dosha vang manah kaya pravritti hetavah pravrittescha ishtanishta mishra phalani karmani upachiyante iti tan mokshartham. Those who are seekers of liberation, for them this way of wisdom is being given, because they are intent upon dropping the forces of the merit and demerit that they have so far gathered as their karmas. They who are no longer seeking to gather the fruitions of their actions. They realize that all the flaws of life are based on ignorance. All the faults that we experience in life are derived from avidya, from ignorance, from non-self, from non-knowledge of self. And these flaws are simply stated as the causes of our inclinations of indulgence into acts of speech, mind, and body. From these inclinations, all the karmas arise and are gathered. From our inclinations to indulge, all the karmas are gathered, whose fruits are desirable ones, undesirable ones, and mostly mixed ones. All your experiences of sound, touch, form, taste, smell, they come through your senses, such as your ears, find within yourself and in all others, you have no discriminatory wisdom. But in fact, there is no difference between a brick and your ear. You strike two bricks together, they make a sound. The brick does not experience the sound. The sound strikes your ear, the ear does not experience the sound. The ear by itself does not experience the sound. It's a chemical reaction. All your experiences of sound, pleasant, unpleasant, somebody said this, somebody said that, somebody laughed, somebody played good music, somebody played out of tune, somebody spoke harshly, somebody spoke sweetly. Your experience of touch, velvet or a thorn, your experience of form, somebody's beauty, somebody's ugliness, some object's beauty, some object's ugliness, your experience of taste, your experience of smell. The senses only provide chemical reaction, not knowledge. The senses do not know these things themselves. The senses only serve as the mediums for the information. These are known to the mind through the medium of the senses. But the true knower is not in the category of these objects. Therefore, why the identification? The true knower is not of the same category. He is neither a brick, nor a stone, nor a bell, nor a musical instrument, not somebody else's mouth. So how does it become absorbed? How do you take it in? How do you make it as your experience that now dwells in your heart and mind and motivates you towards the right or wrong, towards good or bad, towards pleasant actions and unpleasant actions towards others, towards beneficiary acts or vengeful acts? You have nothing to do with them. The sound was produced by a material object. It touched a material object called the eardrum. Where do you stand? Where are you in it? Where is Atman, the self? Nothing happened. When you become an observer of this fact, you have independence of mind. I'll read to you more tomorrow morning. We'll have a silent meditation from 8:30 to 9:30. Then I do some initiations at that time, so you'll have a break. And whatever time I finish the initiations, about maybe 10:30 or so, then we gather again and I share a few more thoughts with you. In the meantime, go to your room and go over what I have said about contemplative wisdom, about freedom of the mind, disidentification with externals. There are four urges: how you are misusing them and not using them as fountains of wisdom, how you are letting them distort your life. Okay? Work on that. And if you go from this retreat with even one change in your life, in your attitude, your perceptions, your evaluation of the world and all its events, then your silence is successful. Okay? I must take care of my body aches.